I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, March the 5th, where receipts were curbed in your Monday sales, both your big high volume Monday sales and also some regional markets on Monday through the lower part of the Midwest, and more than anything, just bitter cold temperatures. But also it was cold and miserable over the weekend, so not a lot of cattle in those sales. So either ran on extremely curtailed receipts, shut down completely, or some sales actually postponed until a day or two later in the week. But look at the board on Monday. April live cattle futures down $1.20 at 128.35. June down 62 cents at 119.80. March feeder cattle down just 2 cents at 141.20, and April was also off 2 cents at 145.02. Let's look at the results from last week's negotiated fat cattle trade. We talked last week and in our visit and our weekly summary about how everybody was hoping to hold for 130 and was really excited about holding off, and nobody had sold any cattle through the week, and was really looking like we were going to get 130. And then late in the morning on Friday, start seeing a few sellers slip and sell cattle for 130 with time on them late into March, when we were kind of expecting this market to kind of top out. And your guys that were selling spot cash, well, they were hoping to get 130 this past week and maybe get 135 by later on in the month. But we're not able to do that after more yards fell and more yards fell, and finally your Packers had enough cattle with time at the market they were wanting to get last week, and it was just impossible to hold your market last week at the 130. So ended up selling at 128, which was still $2 higher. Dress trade could be a little better than that, as the cattle dressed pretty well at 205. That was $3 higher. But your movement in your 5 area feeding region was 104,600, 104,600 head. That's a pretty good movement there. That's the heaviest movement they've had since the first week of the year. And so that's the only time they've been over 100,000 since then. So been running a whole lot lower than that. Actually, up through this year to date, your negotiated sales in your 5 area feeding region were down 20% from just last year. And that's pretty significant, and maybe if your guys would have thought a little bit more about that and thought about how short bought your Packers really were on your negotiated trade, that maybe they would have come out and tried to hold on a little bit more to get a little bit more market position. But the market position is not near where it should be, even though we did gain some ground. But you look at the weighted average on live steers last week in the 5 area feeding region was 128.22, so did have a few selling more than that. That was up $1.86 compared to the weighted average on live steers the previous week. Dress steers averaged 205.07. That's up $3.10 compared to the previous week. So that's a pretty good price gain there, even though the guys were really hoping to get more, because they had a couple 2 out of 3 week failures to gain a lot of ground like they thought they should, and this is the time they need to gain ground. But you look at nationwide, 118,000 sold, and only 15,000 of those, or not quite 13%, were said to have been for 15 to 30 day. Now, word around the country is there was a whole lot more than that. But maybe your Packers got those in the wrong hole. I'm not sure, but just didn't seem like that was near what was talked about on Friday and what we thought probably had happened. But that's not the way it come through on the mandatory price reporting. They have audit review and compliance people that go in and check that periodically, and maybe they should kind of put their nose on that one. And we've talked in the last several weeks how your Packers are using forward contracting to get more cattle secured out front. And for your April and May contracts, so for the next 2 months, they've got more contracts, over 100,000 head more, 108,300 head more than they did last year. So using that a whole lot more. And like I said, on that 15 to 30 day delivery on negotiated, they could have thrown a kicker in there and called those a formula sale, and then hid the fact that they were for the 2 to 4 week delivery. But there's all kinds of schemes that the Packers use to keep things going their way, and they're very, very good at all of them. And you just have to tip your hat to them at some point. But box beef cutout values had big gains, especially on choice on Monday. Everything going their way, and it's the time of the year where they really, really make a killing, and really going to do it this year, because your cattle feeders cannot gain any market position on them at all. But let's look at your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central down another 8 cents late on Monday at 139.34. Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma National Stockyards, only 2,200 head. Not well tested there, of course. They're used to having a big sale, and mostly due to cold weather. But I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of those guys were watching the American on RFD TV over the weekend and just didn't want to get out and get those cattle up. But Joplin Regional Stockyards, just over 700 head there, and a cold snap there, and didn't have many cattle at all. Russell, Iowa, they did have a sale, 4,500. I wonder if it was any warmer up there. I doubt it. Those guys are just quite a bit tougher than the guys further south. But look at this report on Cattle Market Central in Russell, Iowa. Steers, 638 head of the 6-weight steers there, average 658 at 158.33. The notch bigger, 764 head of 7-weight steers, average 754, 142.71. Look at the biggest bunch on the heifers, 771 head of 6-weight heifers, average 648 at 139.01. And look at this individual quote out of Russell, Iowa, 56 head of steers, weighed 678. Bring 163 1/4. That's the best quote that I saw on Monday, even though receipts were really light all around. But another place that had a good sale, Aberdeen livestock sales in Aberdeen, South Dakota up there, had 3,700 head. Talked to the guys up there. They're interested in starting to get their information into Cattle Market Central. They're not reported by any federal state market news service, so we're glad to have a good big sale up in that country on Cattle Market Central, and we'll get things in where they ought to be, and then we'll get them quoted up there pretty quick, and then they're going to get one of these national beef wires for their sale barn too at the same time for free. But they had a big string of cattle. The Hardy Farms, they're local around Aberdeen, bring in 274 head of steers. In the same weight group, there was 5 straight loads of 9-weight steers there. They averaged 930 pounds. They were all black hided and good. Bring 138.10. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.